The first section notes today is titled Simplify. Rational expressions. The first problem today is w squared plus w divided by w squared minus 49. Same steps as we did in the previous section. We want to factor the numerator first and then factor the denominator. For the numerator, each term has a w, so we can factor a w out. W squared divided by 1w would still be w, and w divided by w would cancel, but w divided by w would be 1. So the numerator, we're left with w and w plus 1. For the denominator, w squared minus 49 is a special factoring. This one is the difference of squares, where you can take the square root of each term. The square root of w would be w, and the square root of 49 would be 7. So we'll have w plus 7 and w minus 7. When you take the square root, one would be positive and one would be negative. To simplify, you want to check and see if any of the factors are the same on the numerator and denominator. In this case, they're all different. To cancel out a w, it has to be w just by itself. To cancel out w plus 7, you'd have to have w plus 7 in the numerator. In this case, nothing cancels, so your final answer in factored form would be w plus 1, divided by w plus 7, w minus 7. Next question for this section is a squared plus 2a plus 1, divided by 5a plus 5. In this question, we have a trinomial for the numerator, a squared plus 2a plus 1. In that case, we can draw the x to factor. The last number 1 goes on top of the x. The middle number 2 goes on bottom of the x. And we need two numbers that multiply to get 1, and the same numbers add to get 2. In this case, it would be 1 and 1. 1 times 1 would be 1. 1 plus 1 would be 2. So your factored form using these two numbers would be a plus 1 and a plus 1. For the denominator, 5a plus 5, 5 goes into each of these terms. And if we divide each one by 5, we're left with a plus 5 divided by 5 would be 1. In this case, after everything's factored, we have the same parentheses on top and bottom, a plus 1 and a plus 1. And again, like before, those divide out or cancel out. So your final answer are the factors that are left. In this case, a plus 1 divided by 5. And the last question for this section, m plus 4 divided by m squared plus 2m minus 8. For this question, m plus 4 is already factored and cannot be simplified anymore. For the denominator, again, anytime you have a trinomial, m squared plus 2m minus 8, you can factor by the diamond. Negative 8 goes on top, positive 2 goes on bottom, and we need two numbers that multiply to get negative 8. Same two numbers add to get 2. Those numbers would be 4 and negative 2. Again, when you have a negative on top, it means one number has to be negative. If it adds to get a positive 2, that means the bigger number is positive. So m squared plus 2m minus 8 factors to m plus 4 and m minus 2. Again, once the rational expression is factored, check to see if there's any common factors in the numerator and denominator. In this case, m plus 4 would cancel out or divide out. And our final answer, we have m minus 2, but keep in mind the m minus 2 is on the bottom of the fraction. And if everything cancels out in the numerator, you can put a 1 in the numerator. So your final answer would be 1 over m minus 2. The last section of notes today is titled More Complex Rational Expressions. The first question is 5 minus 4n divided by 4n minus 5. In this case, neither the numerator or denominator can be factored, but if you look at the numerator and denominator, they are pretty similar. We have negative 4n and positive 4n, and we also have positive 5 and negative 5. What you can do in this case, when each number is off by negative, is for the numerator, we can factor out a negative 1. 5 divided by negative 1 would be negative 5, and negative 4 divided by negative 1 would be positive 4, and the n comes over. The denominator will leave the same, 4n minus 5. And now if you look at the two factors, both factors are actually the same. They're written backwards. We have positive 4n and minus 5. So since these are both the same, what we can do is cancel those or divide those, and our final answer would be negative 1. Last question for the section. 12 minus 4y divided by y squared minus 2y minus 3. Same steps as before. We'll factor the numerator and then we'll factor the denominator. The numerator, we have two numbers, 12 and 4. We can factor out a 4 from each of those. Dividing by 4, we're left with 3 minus, the y's cancel, or the 4's cancel, and you're left with 3 minus y. For the denominator, we have y squared minus 2y minus 3. Again, each time you have a trinomial with y squared or a variable squared, you can draw the diamond, or x, negative 3 goes on top, negative 2 goes on the bottom. And again, we need two numbers that multiply to get negative 3, and the same two numbers add to get negative 2. Those numbers would be negative 3 and positive 1. So y squared minus 2y minus 3 would factor to y minus 3 and y plus 1. Again, look at the numerator and denominator to see if any of the parentheses or factors are the same. Like in the previous problem, we have 3 minus y and y minus 3, which again are exactly the same, but they're off by a negative. So what we can do in that case is again factor out a negative from here. We can change this to negative 4. Dividing by negative 1 makes that a negative 3. Dividing by negative 1 makes that a positive y. So if we take a negative out from the parentheses, it'll switch to negative 3 plus y. The denominator we can leave the same. And again, negative 3 plus y is the same as y minus 3. The terms are just switched around, but we can cancel those out. And our final answer is what's left. Negative 4 in the numerator and y plus 1 in the denominator.